Hello, my name is Van Jones, and I am here at the White House complex. Here with Christine Glentz. We work at the White House Council on Environmental Quality, and that is a component in the White House. We help the president coordinate his environmental agenda. So this is a first. This is the first time that we've ever done a live chat from the White House complex, and I am here to answer your questions. First, I want to brag on the video that we were able to complete, which shows an incredible weatherization effort that's going on here in Washington, D.C. and across the country. I hope you got a chance to look at that video. It shows in action President Obama's commitment to cutting our energy bills, making our energy more affordable, but also creating jobs for folks. And if you looked at the thing, what you saw was regular people who were getting paid, who were doing important work, blowing in insulation, replacing out windows and doors, and making it possible for people to pay less money on their energy bill, saving money at the same time they were earning money. That's a big part of our agenda going forward. So the way this is going to work is as follows. You get a chance to write, I think it's this way, yeah. You get a chance to write questions, and then Christine is going to look at the questions, and she's going to ask me what the questions are, and then I'm answering. So what's the first question?
Okay, the first question is, what exactly do you do at the White House Council on Environmental Equality?
Well, I am the special advisor for green jobs, and so what my role is to try to make sure that the president's commitment to getting millions of people green jobs actually comes true and comes through. You know, it's a long way from the president signing a bill into law to a regular American signing the back of a paycheck. And that whole long journey is a journey that I have some responsibility to help coordinate. And I have a special focus at the request of the vice president on energy efficiency for our buildings. Helping our homeowners save money on their energy bills is the center of the bullseye for my job. And one of the reasons for that is that this summer we've got about $2.5 billion moving from our Department of Energy out to states and cities so that people in their own communities can begin putting people to work weatherizing, retrofitting buildings. So I'm the special advisor for green jobs, and I'm focused on energy efficiency.
Great. Our second question is, what is Van Jones's opinion on the ACES bill, which is the Waxman-Markey bill, currently moving through the House?
Gotcha. Well, you know, the president has been loud, proud, and clear from the very beginning. This is the year to get a bill done, to begin to transition our economy to a clean energy economy, to start getting millions of clean energy jobs going, to deal with this runaway global warming problem, and to set the United States on the path to being the world leader on environmental solutions. That is, when he ran, he said it. During the transition, he said it. And he put a challenge in front of Congress and say, listen, we need to get moving on this. We need to pass a bill. We're not going to kick the can down the road another year, another term. And we're proud that Congress responded. And the president yesterday said that he wants to see the bill that is presently in front of the House get moved and get passed and move on to get the work done in the Senate so we can sign the bill. So we're excited that the president's commitment and his strong stand that we are going to have a clean energy economy in this country has been honored by Congress, and we're looking forward to moving forward with the process.
Great. We have a question. Our third question is that home improvements are great, but what are things that our Facebook watchers can do in their apartments?
Oh, that's a really good question. For renters, that's always a barrier because if you're a renter, you're not likely to go out and buy a new boiler or a new furnace for the place that you're renting or try to get a bunch of insulation. But everybody can take those simple steps to conserve energy. Even simple things that people sometimes make jokes about, but actually are very important. Unplugging those adapters that are still plugged into the wall for your cell phone, for your BlackBerry. Replacing out those compact fluorescent light bulbs so that those old light bulbs with the new stuff, so that we can actually begin to use less energy. And one reason that's so important, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's just like, oh well, it's kind of a nice thing to do. It would be nice if I were to cut my lights off and stuff like that. I think we don't really get that when you're talking about global warming, you're talking about greenhouse gases, we often talk about cars, we talk about buses, we talk about planes. Most of the time in your life, you're not in a car or a plane. You're usually in a building. And in that building, you've got your iPod, and you got your video game going, you've got your TV on, and it's buildings that are actually contributing 40% to our greenhouse gas problem. Why? Because most of our buildings are powered, half of our power comes from coal-fired power plants. Well, if we can actually use less energy in our buildings, say we cut our energy use in our buildings by 30%, well, that actually brings down the strain on our power plants by 30%, which brings down pollution by 30%, which can cut asthma by a big percentage and can also cut greenhouse gas emissions. So this big effort that we have to try to get people to use less energy, combined with the President's commitment to have us produce more energy in a cleaner way, is those are the two tracks that we're moving the country down to actually get this clean energy transformation to happen. And so it's good for our health, the health of our children, their lungs. If our power plants don't have to work so hard, there's less pollution in the air, less asthma in the lungs of our children. Those are the reasons that we're passionate about energy efficiency. No matter who you are, you can be a part of this effort to help us save energy and use energy more wisely in this country.
Great. We have a question here about what cities are doing. I know you've been traveling a lot.
Yep.
Let's see, Charlottesville, Philadelphia. We've talked about what's happening in New York, Seattle. The list continues. So can you give us some of the examples of what cities are doing around the country on green jobs?
Sure. We were just in Charlottesville. Was that yesterday?
It was yesterday.
We travel around a lot. We were just in Charlottesville yesterday, and it's unbelievable what they are doing there. They have taken some of the recovery dollars. People often talk about the stimulus package, which drives me nuts. We don't have a stimulus package. The president never signed a stimulus package. He signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. We've got a recovery package. And that's why what we're doing with the money is not just for that short-term stimulus, it's for that long-term strength in our country. And one of the things that we're doing, again, is weatherizing buildings, retrofitting buildings. And in Charlottesville, people got together, they said, hey, guess what? We're going to take these recovery dollars, thank you very much, Mr. President, but we're going to do something really smart and creative with the money. We're actually going to create, rather than just spend it all, we're going to create a revolving loan fund. And so what they've decided to do to keep that money in place, they're going to loan that money to homeowners who want to use those dollars to retrofit their homes and then let those homeowners pay that money back out of their cost savings. For instance, suppose your home has a $100 a month energy bill. Well, once you get your home retrofitted or weatherized, that number may come down to $70. Well, if you've got that $30 savings, what this program is going to let people do is take 15 of those dollars, use it to pay back the money for the work, and then in 2 to 4 years, their bill will fall all the way down. So in other words, you're in a situation where you have immediate cost savings. You're going to go from $100, say, to $85. And then in 2 to 4 years, once you've paid off all that work, you'll go all the way down to 70. And then you'll keep those savings going year after year after year. That is the genius of President Obama in his commitment to coming up with a new kind of environmentalism. And everybody matters, everybody counts, everybody gets to play environmentalism. It's not just anymore about, do you have enough extra money to buy some great new green technology? That's important. We want those early adopters of those new technologies. But it's not just about spending more money. It's about earning more money and saving more money. That's what President Obama is committed to.
Great. We have a question from Jamie Ormond, who wants to know, when will the money for solar energy and training get to the schools to train more students? And I think we had an announcement today.
That's a great question. Secretary Hilda Solis, who is the Secretary of Labor, one of the great champions of justice in this country. She was the champion in Congress who got something called the Green Jobs Act passed, and that was in 2007. It was the first time that something called green jobs had ever been signed into law, and actually George Bush signed it into law. She was such a great champion, she was able to get it through the Congress and actually get it signed into law as a part of the energy package that George Bush signed at the end of 2007. In that energy package was something called the Green Jobs Act of 2007, and it was designed to fund job training. So recognizing if we're going to have a clean energy economy, all these clean energy technologies, Well, these technologies, they don't put themselves up. Solar panels don't install themselves. Wind turbines don't manufacture themselves. Buildings don't retrofit themselves. People have to do that work. And so Hilda Solis, being a visionary, said we got to make sure we got the training dollars in place. So sure enough, she got that signed into law. And then in 2009, this year, President Obama saw that program and put $500 million into it. And by that point, he'd already named Hilda Solis as the Secretary of Labor. So she actually gets to implement, and she announced today that now they are going to begin to move that $500 million out to begin training people, giving people the tools and the training and the technology to begin to retrofit and repower this country. And so you can go online and see her big announcement today. It's a big day for us, a big day for her, a big day for the country.
Okay, we have a question from Trenny Williams, who wants to know, are there conferences in regions across the country that prepare or train organizations on green efforts?
Yeah, you know, there are, and if you go online, you can see that there's a growing movement all across the country. I mean, people who are running community colleges are now saying, look, we want to be able to train people to do this work through the community college system. So our Department of Education is leaning in this direction now to make sure that that there are dollars in place for those programs to go forward. There are a number of organizations that are in the not-for-profit domain that are now doing conferences and get-together. In fact, I was really excited. I wasn't able to attend it, but there's an organization called Living Cities that is a consortium of big foundations and banks. They actually went to Harvard a couple of weeks ago and brought people from all across the United States at the city level. You say, look, we want to do this retrofit agenda. We want to begin weatherizing buildings. We want to save money, and we want to put people to work. And they went to Harvard, and they brought in the best experts, including Gil Sperling, who's an incredible expert at the Department of Energy here, to get all the expertise in one place and give them toolboxes and toolkits of knowledge to go back home and get this work done. So you see all across the country, there are an increasing number of conferences and ways to get involved, to get plugged in. And I hope that everybody here who wants to get this done takes those steps to get it done in their own community.
Okay, we have a question from Brian Kudrowski, and he wants to know, how can we green the roofs of our buildings?
That's good. Are we stuck? I don't know.
Nope.
We're not stuck. We're moving.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, it's funny. I just had a conversation earlier today with a woman named Majora Carter, who is the MacArthur Genius Award-winning leader, really, of the green jobs movement. She's sort of the Rosa Parks of green opportunities. She got the MacArthur Genius Award because she was working in the South Bronx, which is a really tough part of America. I think it's actually technically it's the poorest congressional district in America, is in the South Bronx in New York City. She was working there to bring some hope and some opportunity in parks and green spaces. And one of the ways that she actually was able to get people trained for jobs is teaching green roofing. And the first video that we ever did for this series was about also green roofing. And so for people who don't know what that is, it's not going up to your roof and painting it green. It's actually using the surface of your roof to plant vegetation that can help manage the storm water, can actually keep the building at a more steady temperature, and if you're willing to invest, it can even grow food. And so we can actually begin seeing our rooftops not just as sources or places to put solar panels to create energy, but also places to grow food and keep our buildings at a steady temperature so we can actually conserve energy. And people who are interested in that level of retrofitting and that level of weatherization, I would encourage you to go online and just put in the term green roof in your city. And a lot of places you're going to see a number now of opportunities to do that.
Okay, we have a question from Kristen Saki. She wants to know, how can we ensure that low-income and homeless people have access to jobs in the clean energy economy?
Well, this is a very important question, and it's really close to the heart of this administration. We want to make sure that we have green pathways out of poverty to prosperity for all kinds of Americans. And what the president knows is that there are green solutions and green opportunities for every part of this country. Some places, you got a lot of sunshine. That's where you should be seeing a lot more solar panels going up. Some places you got a lot of wind blowing, where they're talking about the plain states or right off our coast or up in the Great Lakes area. That's where you should see a lot more wind turbines being manufactured and put up. Some places, people have been growing things for years, good products. There's an opportunity to start growing smarter biofuels and to begin to diversify some of our farmland to also help us to produce fuel. So other parts of the country might be good places to begin to explore geothermal options. But the president knows that all across the country there are tremendous opportunities for new clean and green industries to move forward, and also for energy efficiency to move forward. You take a place like Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, where they're now looking at how to make more advanced cars and smarter batteries. Well, the question is, this is the work that most needs to be done in our country to begin to not only repower us from the point of view of new energy, but also to revitalize the economy with new jobs. Well, these are the jobs that are the work that's most important and the work that most needs to be done. We are passionate about finding ways to connect that work in some measure to people who most need work. We have veterans who are coming home. We have kids in rural and urban America who may not feel they've got a great future. We've got people who've been thrown out of work recently. And so, again, Secretary Hilda Solis has stepped into the breach, and she is working very hard to make sure that there are what she calls pathways out of poverty as a part of the grants that the Department of Labor will be making available all across this country to begin to put some green rungs back on the ladder of opportunity. And it's core commitment for this administration. Okay.
We have a question from David Richard Cheeseman about regulations and oversights in place on green jobs and green industries. Can you just give us some examples of green jobs and green industries that are out there?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, we've talked a little bit on the energy side in particular about these kind of 5 technologies that are very interesting: solar technology, wind technology, hydro or wave technology, smart biofuels, and geothermal and advanced geothermal. Those are the 5, sort of, the heart of the renewable energy revolution. And there are jobs in those categories, literally from GEDs to PhDs and back again. The great thing about what we're trying to do, we want to get these industries going. We want to get these industries moving. Our Clean Energy Jobs Bill, our climate bill, is designed to jumpstart these new industries so we can start producing here in our country the energy and home growing our own energy rather than relying on overseas sources to do for us what we could do for ourselves here and create those jobs. And so you've got those 5 energy technologies. Those energy technologies have jobs from the PhDs to the GEDs and back. We also focus on energy storage and transmission, so smart batteries and smart transmission. There's a whole set of jobs there. And then lastly, you've got efficiency, both with vehicles and with buildings, and everything that's going to be required to make our vehicles more efficient and use less energy, and our buildings do the same thing. So you have a wide range of those jobs. Now, there's a concern, well, how are we going to make sure that people aren't saying something is greener than it is? Well, that's something that this administration is very committed to as well. And so we are going through a process of coming up with good standards with standardized definitions. It takes a while to arrive at those things because it's not just the federal government. You also have 50 states and cities and others. And so there'll be a process that we come to. But we're committed to having as much transparency and accountability as possible on these definitions.
Thanks, Van. We have a question from Carl Bacart. He wants to know, a solar startup in LA wants to solarize the churches to bring green jobs to the inner city. Can they apply for government funding, or can you talk about how these churches can get more involved and do things in their parishes to put solar panels up?
Well, the Department of Energy is the department in the federal government that has the majority of funds for moving forward these renewable energy technologies. And so depending on what the project is and what you're trying to do, that's the first place to look, is to go to the Department of Energy's website and look for the right category. What I would say is that the interesting kinds of partnerships that we're seeing, where you have cities and utilities and companies and not-for-profits all working together to solve multiple problems and begin deploying these technologies, are very, very, very exciting. I think you're going to see more and more creative uses of public dollars, and I encourage people in their communities to look at places like our schools, like our churches, those either communal places and our parks, those communal places or those public buildings that actually bring people together, and use those as the places from which to begin to build these green dreams.
Great. We have a question from Jeff Roop from Indianapolis, Indiana, and he wants to know, why have the jobs not been started yet? Should we be seeing these improvements? And I think maybe if he looked around Indianapolis, he might find some green jobs. Can you tell us where they are and where they're happening?
Sure. Well, first of all, we are on track in terms of getting the money spent out. For instance, with the, I think sometimes people forget, we've only been here for about 150 days, and we've already been able to get so much done and so much achieved. And our departments and our agencies have been working literally around the clock to make sure that we meet all those deadlines and all those targets that Congress has put out for us. So, for instance, like I said before, on the energy efficiency dollars, we got $2.5 billion out the door from February to now. Just to give you a sense of what achievement that is, last year in 2008, we only put out $200 million the whole year. That was all that was available. We put out $2.5 billion on our way to putting out $5 billion by the end of the Recovery Act period. So so that said, we are still impatient to see even more progress happen. Places like Indianapolis and others have made strong commitments to the energy efficiency program and other programs. I just wanted to brag, I just wanted to brag on the St. Louis, Missouri one too. For instance, in places like St. Louis, Missouri, you have Congressman Cleaver, who,
Kansas City.
I'm sorry, in Kansas City, Missouri, thank you. You have Congressman Cleaver, who has decided to get super creative with these dollars. He's taken $200 million of Recovery Act money and gotten other elected officials together and other leaders and said, hey, let's take this money and let's do something really beautiful with it. Let's go to the 150 toughest blocks where people are really struggling, people are really suffering, and let's show up, partner there, and retrofit every home that needs it in that area. Fix mass transit, fix this bridge that's falling down, and begin to give jobs to people in that community so that people are actually getting a chance to work to improve both the mass transit and the energy consumption, bringing energy efficiency there, so you're cutting the use of energy and therefore the cost, but you're also bringing the jobs up. These are the kinds of creative uses of the Recovery Act dollars that we're most excited about.
Great. We have a question from Madeline Saul, and she wants to know, what's the most important action the average American can take to be a part of this movement in the green revolution?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say right now, being aware of what's going on in Congress. I mean, there are those times when the most important thing you can do is as a consumer to buy the right thing. There are the times the most important thing you can do is as a neighbor, set the right example, share information. But there are times when the most important thing you can do is as a citizen. And right now, our Congress people are making choices about whether or not we are going to advance this clean energy agenda, or whether we're going to kick the can down the road another year, another term. And I would say the most important thing you can do is to be informed, be involved, look at the legislation that's moving forward, and be in conversation with your congresspeople. Make sure that they know that there are people out there who care about this agenda and who voted in November, who plan to vote the next time around. And I think helping create the public will for bold action is the most important thing we can do right now.
Great. We have a question from Stratton Shamel, who wants to know, how are we going to convince people that green energy is better in the long run than some of the more traditional forms of energy that we've been using? So maybe we can give some examples of clean energy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think people are learning every day. I mean, it used to be just a few years ago that this was considered a very exotic topic and only for people who are very interested in, very cutting edge things. If you look at the polling data now, and one of the reasons why you see Congress acting, this has become a mainstream issue. The term clean energy jobs and the terms clean energy incentives, they resonate with the American people, 60, 70%. I think that it's really amazing. There's so much pent-up desire to see us go ahead. Let's have as much innovation in our energy sector in the next 10 years as we had in our information sector in the last 10. You can't even have a conversation in America right now without talking about Twitter, Facebook. Here we are, doing all this sort of fancy stuff. 5 years ago, these brands didn't even exist. YouTube didn't exist. And so what we know is that in the next 10 years, if we build on the existing enthusiasm of the American people for change, then in the next 10 years, we will have new products, new services, new technologies that are household terms that don't even exist right now. And that's what President Obama wants to do.
Here's a good question from Hollis Taylor from Wilmington, Delaware, who wants to know, what will the White House do on organic farming? I don't think they realize we have our own farm here.
Well, the great thing is that because Michelle Obama, our wonderful, brilliant, amazing First Lady, is already leading by example. We have literally within walking distance of where we're sitting right now a major organic farm here on the White House grounds. I think she's leading by example. The farm bill that we have right now, I think just passed last year. We're going to be working inside of that farm bill for a while, but I think we should all be aware that there's a great deal of support in this administration for healthy food, healthy diets, healthy lifestyles, and again, it's not just talk. President Obama and First Lady Obama actually live out those values every day.
Great. We have a question from Greg Daniel, who wants to know, what role do you see the universities and maybe environmental clubs in universities playing in helping this movement? Is there something that they can do to help support this in the administration in these efforts?
For sure. I can't stress enough, and I think that the president and the vice president in particular recognize, we got a generation of young people that get it. This is not rocket science to the new generation. We have the greenest generation ever. We have the most diverse generation of Americans from the point of view of culture and ethnicity ever. And it's amazing that these two things go together. People on the campuses now probably more aware of the need for us to be one country, for us to honor and respect differences and work together, and also more aware that we've got a big challenge to repower a nation and to retrofit a nation. And so I see, and I think you should see the universities as really staging grounds for this movement to go to the next level. And you have college towns where you have Congress people who sometimes have never heard from the college students. You have a lot of activism going on in the dorms, but you have the chance now to move that energy from the dorms out into the political process, and we encourage you to do so.
Great. We have a question from Ian Hatch, who's wondering, from Boston, Massachusetts, and is wondering what the administration is doing to upgrade the transmission grid. Now, I think we have some dollars in the Recovery Act for that, right?
Yeah, this is a big priority. And now look, I know a lot of people say, the transmission, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the solar panels or, the most important thing we can do right now is to create the capacity in this country to connect our clean energy power centers to our population centers. We have tremendous clean energy power centers. In the Sun Belt, we have solar resources, we have wind resources, but here's a problem. We don't have a way to connect those power centers to our population centers. And that's why we have $2 billion in the recovery package, $2 billion with a B, to begin to figure out how it is we create what we call the smart grid. And the smart grid is a way to talk about a number of things, not only smarter transmission, but also smarter information for you and your household, so that you can actually be aware when you're using energy, how much you're using, and what steps you can take. Right now, we're all flying flying blind. We want to use less energy, but we only get 12 data points a year with our monthly utility bill. That's not enough information. We want our homes to be more like those hybrid cars where you get moment-to-moment feedback, so you can actually adjust how you're using your car and how you're using your home to maximize energy efficiency. That technology is also a part of the idea for the smart grid. So this administration is very committed to that idea.
That's great. I think this is going to be our last question,
Last
unfortunately. But we've got Dave out of Chicago, Illinois, who wants to know what region of the countries have this renewable energy, say wind, solar? Where are the concentrations of renewable energy?
Good. Well, for wind, we have really we have more wind resources in the United States than most continents do. It's kind of a shame that right now over in China, our sisters and brothers there are moving so fast to develop their wind energy sector. We want to make sure we're doing the same thing here because we have so many wind resources in our plain states, in Appalachia along those mountains, off our coasts, and then up in the Great Lakes area. So we have 4 very, very powerful places where we can produce a lot of wind energy. We have the ability to produce solar energy in a major way in our sun belt, our deserts, etc. But if you look at Germany, not very sunny place, they've deployed so much solar on their rooftops though that they're now among the world leaders, if not the world leader in solar. So you don't have to have a sunny place to be able to use solar energy, whether you're talking about solar thermal or photovoltaics or the new solar thin film. So really solar can be deployed anywhere. And then we have such a fertile country and the ability to grow smart biofuels that will help us to actually begin to grow in our rural areas and bring our rural communities into this struggle for energy independence. And you can go all the way down the line. Literally every part of America, and even in our urban heartlands, there's the ability to do community gardening and to do all kinds of other positive things that begin to let us use energy more efficiently. So all across the country there are green opportunities and green jobs, and our recovery package is the first effort to get the public investments right in the green economy. And now you see this effort to get the public rules right, to get the public laws right with our climate clean energy jobs bill. If we can stay together, keep working together, bottom up, we'll meet top down, and we'll get the job done.
Great. Thank you, Van, and thanks to everyone on Facebook who have joined us today. I think it's fair to say we all learned something about green jobs and the clean energy economy.
Yep, good, thank you. And we also learned something about doing these video blog
That's right.
webcast type thingies. Hopefully we'll do a lot more.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.